So I want to say first off that this video was recorded post 3.4. So that is where this information comes from. If there is changes by the time that I finish with the final video of this series, I will amend those in the final video. This series is going to be 3 parts. There's going to be this video, the first video, which is going to talk about what you'll see. There'll be a second video, and then there will be a third video. That video will not be out until somewhere around December. As you will notice when I start this video, that the script for this video is about 10 pages long, and that is not including the 2 other parts that I plan to do. So understand that. Thirdly, I'm not the end-all be-all person, and I can get things wrong. I've done my research, but I could have missed something, or I could have misinterpreted something. I'm currently being trained to be a storyteller. I'm being trained by several storytellers in my state, and I love the idea of storytelling, which is what a lot of Greco-Roman, Hellenistic, mythology, religion, stories, all the myths that we know were mostly told orally. Most of them that were written down, but most of them were usually told orally, which is something that I find incredibly fascinating. Other than the fact that I did have a series of my life where I was incredibly fascinated with both ancient Egyptian and Greco-Roman mythology, as most those who have a little bit of the tism do. I also know that I can get things wrong, and I don't want people to think I'm being disrespectful. So please understand that I'm not meaning to get anything wrong, but if I do, please correct me kindly. I don't want to be insulting to anyone. Finally, I am not very good at pronouncing anything, even in English. And so there is a high chance I'm going to mispronounce things. So I am sorry in advance. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. My language that I speak is English, but I can also barely speak English correctly, so just please understand that. And so without further ado, here is the first part of my 3-part series about Amphoreus. I love mythology of any type. I can remember spending my time at my school library religiously reading through the stories of ancient Egypt and Greece, and as I got older, found myself intrigued by Sparta, with no thanks to the movie 300. So when Hoyoverse said they were releasing Amphoreus, and it clearly had Greco-Roman influences, I was immediately hooked. I spent hours just combing over the information given to me through trailers and sneak peeks and silly leaks released by the official accounts by who the internet dubbed as Intern Chan. I wanted to know everything, and I wanted to dive headfirst into this amazing new place. What got me originally, though, before the similarities to the flame chase of HI3, was the name used by Hoyoverse. As someone who read Circe by Madeline Miller and spent hours just comparing it to Hellenistic literature for fun, as well as read every single Greek mythology retelling to feel something, I wanted to immediately dissect this so I could know absolutely everything. Just to note, I am not Hoyoverse, nor am I pretending to be Hoyoverse, whether they're team, developers, etc. The things I had to say are simply my thoughts and ideas and are not my final opinion per se. I'm not part of the dev team, and anything that I have found here has been my own research into mythology and my own time that was spent researching. So I am not saying that any of my thoughts are correct, but it would be certainly cool. This is also to warn that this video is caught up with the events of 3.4, so be warned, this will have spoilers. As well, the copyright laws of the United States recognizes a fair use of copyrighted content. Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act states, notwithstanding the provisions of Sections 106 and 106A, the fair use of a copyrighted work, including such use by reproduction in copies or phonorecords, or by any other means specified by that section, for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, including multiple copies for classroom use, scholarship, or research, is not an infringement of copyright. This video and our YouTube channel in general may contain certain copyrighted works that are not specifically authorized to be used by the copyright holders, but which we believe in good faith are protected by federal law and the fair use doctrine for one or more reasons noted above. If you have any specific concerns about this video or our position on the fair use defense, please contact us at the email address in my about so we can discuss this amicably. Thank you. For the viewer, I would recommend getting a snack, a blanket, and taking a seat. This will be multiple parts, and once I'm finished, I will combine all the parts together in a full-length presentation. This first part will be about names, callbacks, and lore. Part 2 will discuss the flame chase of old. Part 3 will discuss the whole of Amphoreus. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. To begin, I'm going to start with our local favorite failboy, Finan. As we know, Finan is the deliverer and the one who holds the core flame of world-bearing. His titan is Kephale. When I was doing research, I came up with some interesting things. Finan in Greek is directly translated to Phaenon. Different authors use the name Star of Jove, Phaethon, the Sun, or Helios, but they all seem to link back to this name, Phaenon. Knowing how much Hoyoverse loves using this name doesn't surprise me, as we have direct reference to it with Zenlund Stone Zero, with the proxy's name being Phaethon. Phaenon is Greek, meaning bright or shining. Phaenon was the god of wandering star, Croinon, the planet Saturn. Though some translations will also say Jupiter, according to mythology, there's two possibilities by translation. He was either the son of Astraeus and Eos, stars and dawn respectively, or an extremely handsome youth crafted by Prometheus from clay and placed in the sky by Zeus. I suppose it makes sense that he would be related to the idea of creation, as the one who supposedly is the world bearer is supposed to recreate the world. Kephale is translated directly as head, which would, I guess, make sense as well. Some translations come from Hyginus, talking about planets. It remains to us to speak of the 5 stars, which many have called wandering, and which the Greeks call planeta. One of them is the Star of Jove, Phaenon by name, a youth who Prometheus made excelling all others in beauty. When he was making men, as Heracles Ponticus said, when he intended to keep him back without presenting him to Jove as he did the others, Jupiter Eros reported this to Jove, Zeus, whereupon Mercurius, Hermes, was sent to Phaenon and persuaded him to come to Jove and become immortal. Therefore, he is placed among the stars. There's other references as well from Roman and Greek, but most of them do deal with stars, the planets, and such. Phaenon is quoted in the Hesiod, Theogony, as well as the Apollodorus, and known as Dionysica in Roman, Hyginus Astronomica, and Cicero de Natura Deorum. The next I'd like to talk about, which I feel fits the best for this discussion, is Midamos. I would have gone with him first, because I feel that his own callbacks are so obvious to his mythology. Really, I assume that his namesake comes from the suffix Deimos. Deimos is Greek and comes from the Greek mythology Deimos, who is the son of Ares and Aphrodite and the twin brother of Phobos, and was one of the daimones, or personified spirits. While Deimos represented dread and terror in battle, Phobos represented fear and panic in battle. They would often be seen assisting their father Ares in battle next to his sister Eris, the goddess of discord. Also, according to one author, Samus of Delos, Deimos was the father of Scylla. If you're familiar, Scylla and Charybdis, one of the monsters in mythology. Deimos is also represented a fear of loss due to his mother being Aphrodite. Some mentions of Deimos include in Homer with the Iliad, such as Ares drove these warriors on, and Deimos, terror, drove them, and Phobos, fear, and Eris, hate, whose wrath is relentless. She, the sister and companion of murderous Ares. There's also mentions in the Hesiod, as well as in Tisiphone. Nicodor also is Greek for conqueror, which could also match Ares. However, it isn't lost on me some of the other mentions that Hoyo has put into the game to give him other matches. In one scene in 3.1, you might remember, Mighty is retelling what happened to his friends, And there's some mentions of a few people that are very relative to note and tell me exactly what they were going with in regards to him, if not for the reference to Achilles, with the weakness of its back and Achilles' weakness being his heel. I'm sure you're familiar with Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was a king of Macedon who succeeded his father in 336 BC. He led an extensive campaign through Asia and Egypt, creating one of the largest empires in history by the time he was 30. He was also known to be undefeated in battle and one of the most successful military commanders in history. His friends, notably, were names like Ptolemy, Hephaestion, who was notably one of Alexander's lovers, as noted by historians. Yes, alpha males, your guy was historically bisexual. He kissed men. Cry about it. Mighty's friends, Ptolemy, Hephaestion, Pacesta, Leonidas, and Perdiccas were all iconic names in Greek mythology and history. Perdiccas, or Perdiccas, was the successor of Alexander the Great in the region of the Macedonian Empire. Leonidas may be referring to Leonidas I, the king of Sparta and son of the king Anaxandridas II, and part of the royal house that claimed descent from Heracles. Pacesta, or Pacestas, was one of the officers in Alexander's command and was selected by Alexander to actually carry the sacred shield taken from the temple of Athena at Troy. Hephaestion was a nobleman and a general in Alexander's army. He was described, quote-unquote, by far the dearest of all of the king's friends, and they shared many secrets. He was made the second in command and made chiliarch of the empire. Ptolemy I Soter was a Greek general, historian, and successor of Alexander the Great. He actually went on to found the Ptolemaic kingdom centered on Egypt. Now, Anaxagoras, our dear feeble scholar. Of course, he holds something truly interesting when it comes to who he is. Anaxagoras was actually a real person. Anaxagoras was a pre-Socratic Greek philosopher and was known for introducing the concept of nous, or the cosmic mind, as well as other things such as being the first to correctly explain eclipses, which is really interesting considering that nous is an aeon. But the idea and concept of nous comes from the faculty of the human mind necessary for understanding what is true or real, quote-unquote. It's more or less the understanding of rationality, which I feel fits in Anaxagoras very well. Considering his titan, Circes, there's something interesting about that. Circes, or Kirkos, means ring in Greek, but this could also be referring to Circe. Circe is the daughter of Helios and Perse, and was known for her ability to transform enemies or those who might have offended her. If you've read the Odyssey by Homer, you're probably very familiar with Circe. It all ties together when you think of the fact that Anaxa regularly experimented and worked with alchemy, especially noting had a philosopher's stone. The philosopher's stone, known as the tincture, or the powder, could transform base metals into gold and silver, and an elixir of life was believed to be possible to derive from it. The philosopher's stone was believed to be able to cure illness, prolong life, and bring spiritual revival. Alchemy itself was about perfection of human souls, and what was Anaxa concerned with? Pretty much the same thing. Now, Steridra. She could be a little complicated and may or not derive from Greek mythology. I kind of found her situation interesting. The name seems to come from Cerdwin, which is Welsh of all things. In Welsh, this means blessed poetry, though this could also be a call to the word Syrinx in Greek, which means herald or messenger. There's also the mention by those who have also done a lot of research like me into this, that her name could be a call to the Serenea hind, which was a doe with golden horns that was fabled to be yoked to Artemis's chariot. What I do find interesting, though, not knowing much about her currently, is that her namesake via the word Talantin. Talantin is her titan. A talent in Greek, it was talent, in Greek it was talantin, was a unit of measurement for weighing gold and silver. In Homer's words, actually, a talantin is a pair of scales in which Zeus would weigh the fortunes of men. I wish there was more I could find about her, but as of now, in the 3.4 update, we only know her by name and that she supposedly exiled herself. Hycelins is probably my favorite upcoming Chrysos heir, and I found her name incredibly interesting as well. She's actually the reason why I even started this part of the video. Her name could call back to two gods, Hypnos and Silenus. Her real name could also be called to Electra. Hypnos is the Greek personification of sleep, with the Roman equivalent Somnus. Hypnos was a friend of the Muses, which begs another question of the origin of the name in regards to the word hypnosis. However, considering that Phagusa is supposed to be a titan of the sea and of merrymaking, it goes back, I feel, to the other namesake that I feel Hoyo took this from. Silenus is the god of the forest and a tutor to the god Dionysus. Regularly attributed to the cult of Dionysus and the one who presides over the diamonds, Silenus, or Silenus, is known for being related to musical creativity, prophetic ecstasy, drunken joy, drunken dances, and gestures. He was also known as the foster father of Dionysus. Phagusa comes up more as Phaethwa, who was one of those responsible for overseeing the cattle of Helios. Electra, however, is a whole different story. Electra is the daughter of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra, and her brother was Orestes and her sister was Iphigenia. When the Oracle of Delphi ordered her brother to return home to avenge the death of his father, Electra went with him. Electra assisted her brother in some accounts in the murder of her mother Clytemnestra and her mother's lover Aegisthus. Now, cipher was interesting because cipher goes back to the idea of cryptography, which I didn't feel very genuine to who Cypher is, if only that she's just a line of code, I suppose. I'm major copium, because I hope that's not true. What did capture my attention was Cypher's hometown, Dolos. Dolus, Latin for deception, guile, deceit, is the apprentice of the Titan Prometheus. According to Hyginus, Dolus was the child of Aether and Terra. According to Cicero, Dolus was the child of Aether and Dias, or Day. In a story, Prometheus leaves his workshop to Dolus. Out of a sense of jealousy, Dolus creates a duplicate of what Prometheus had made with clay, but because he had run out of clay, Dolus's figure had no feet. Prometheus was so impressed that he fired both clay figures in the kiln. However, when Prometheus's figure walked forward, Dolus's figure stood still, unable to walk. Prometheus's figure was called Truth, and Dolus's was called Falsehood. Now, speaking of Castorus, that was one that didn't take too much thought. There's a call to Thanatos, who is also a twin. Thanatos is the twin of Hypnos and the god of peaceful death. There's also Castor and Pollux. They're the twin half-brothers in Greek and Roman mythology, known as the Dioscuri. Their mother was Leda, but they had different fathers. Castor was the mortal son of Tyndareus, and Pollux was the divine son of Zeus. In Latin, the twins were known as Gemini, which makes sense being that Castor is a twin. The pair were regarded as the patrons of sailors, to whom they appear at St. Elmo's fire. They are also associated with horsemanship. Now, speaking of Cyrene, or Kyrene, is a figure in Greek mythology coming from the eastern Libya in North Africa. She was said to have been a Thessalian princess and a huntress who became the queen regent of Cyrene, founded and named in her honor by the god Apollo. So she was a fierce huntress, and she had eyes upon the poet Agathon. She was given the companion of the goddess Artemis, who had given her 2 hunting dogs. With the help of these dogs, Cyrene had been able to win the prize in the funeral games of Peleus. As well, she had done many things such as wrestling lions. As well, she was very highly favored by Apollo. So Terravox was also very interesting. And again, we don't know much about Cyrene, Terravox, all of them, but Terra, I thought was interesting. Mother Earth is a personification of Earth. Vox seems to be more of a call to voices, but considering how Terravox is supposed to be the Titan of the Earth, it makes a lot of sense for Terravox to be a callback to that. So with Hyacine, there's the hyacinthus flower, but there's also the youth Hyacinthus, who was killed by Zephyrus, the god of the west wind, jealous of his love for Apollo. He then transformed the drops of Hyacinth's blood into flowers. So in Greek mythology, Hyacinthus was a Spartan prince of beauty and lover of the god of prophecy Apollo, and he was also admired by Zephyrus, Boreas, the god of the north wind, and a mortal man named Thamyris. Hyacinthus chose Apollo above the others, and he was always visiting. They decided to have a friendly competition one day, which resulted in Apollo accidentally killing Hyacinthus. Trubios. Now, this was kind of interesting, too, because Trubios, the only thing that I could find was Janus, which was the Titan. And Janus is the Roman god of beginnings, gates, transitions, times, dualities, doorways, passages, frames, and endings. Usually, Janus is described to have had two faces, though we know that the Trebes as we know them have three, at least when they start. Janus usually presided over the beginning and ending of conflict, usually war and peace. The gates of the Temple of Janus in Rome were opened in time of war and closed to mark peace. The god of transitions, Janus had functions pertaining to birth and to journeys and exchange, and in his association with Pontunus, a similar harbor and gateway god, he was concerned with traveling, trading, and shipping. And lastly, of course, we got to talk about Aglaia. So Aglaia was known as one of the charities. According to Hesiod, Aglaia was one of the three charities along with Euphorosine and Thalia. And actually, she was the one that was married to Hephaestus. This was usually seen after he divorced Aphrodite. So I know that this is somewhat short. I know we're talking about 21 minutes at this point. But there's some people here that I'm not totally sure about yet. I'm still researching with what we know so far, but I wanted to get something out. And of course, like I said in the beginning of the video, I will amend anything in my final video, which will be sometime in December. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a while since I've actually made a video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.